Lars von Trier is a highly controversial Danish filmmaker that has produced many award-winning films. Von Trier openly struggles with depression and anxiety, and I think he very well translates fear, grief, and pain into his storytelling. I am a very huge fan of Von Trier because I believe he is truly talented in his translation of the struggle associated with living with a mental illness. His 2009 film Antichrist shows how grief can penetrate the human psyche and destine people who suffer with it to evil. As an artist would translate emotions by colors, compositions, and subjects, Von Trier navigates the subtleties of filmmaking in order to create the wanted quality of emotion. His setting, characters, and dialogue are what drive his thesis.
Maybe at least my recent films, and I'm trying to defend something that I do not believe in. But the good thing about that is that I think you get a little wiser each time, because it's to try to defend something that you do not agree with is a very good exercise for when you're humanistic.
Antichrist follows the story of a nameless couple, referred to as she and he. They have just lost their child due to an accident. While they were having sex, their only son has fallen out of a window. The opening scenes are in black and white, and the music is Romanza a Cristina, which is beautiful and soft. The opening scenes are heavy by nature. The same act that has brought their child into the world would ultimately lead to his death. The scenes switch in and out of their son's innocent plight to retrieve a toy by crawling out of his crib against his parents' ecstasy. The transitions are rigid and rough. The child's innocence is shown by the eerie smile across his face as he's falling to his own death. After their son's death, she has fallen ill with grief. The empty look on her face is present as she walks out of his funeral and suddenly falls to her knees. Her husband is a psychologist who is unhappy with the treatment she is receiving under the care of another doctor. After her husband decides to pull her out of the institution which she is being treated at, he takes her under his care. This is where the story takes its first dark turn, and Chapter 1, entitled Grief, begins. The couple's true colors are shown as they both become angry. Unknown feelings begin to surface about the nature of their relationship and how she has cared for their own son. The couple is no longer healthy. There would be no more characters introduced after this. It is almost as if the couple is alone in their own deranged and empty world. It seems after this point as if he is torturing her by attempting to treat her. After deciding to go to their secluded cabin named Eden, the film takes an even darker turn. The couple see things in the woods, deformed animals and faces. The colors of the woods are dark and punishing. The harsh yellows, greens, and red contrast each other in the trees. The couple hears unexplainable sounds. They begin to wrongly engage in sadomasochistic sex under her own husband's treatment. The film itself has an unclear moral position which could be interpreted as a result of their depression and how the effects can completely remove a person from their healthy morals and values. As a healthy practicing doctor, he would have known that treating your own family is a complete violation. They dive deeper into the second chapter, Pain, in the hauntingly quiet woods. Eden will make them both increasingly more violent, misunderstood, and evil. Here at Eden, she will reveal to her husband that her working thesis was that women are evil by nature, and this is something she believes. This also will become the central thesis of the film. Von Trier uses color and cinematic elements that allude to dark magic to drive home a point about the beliefs of the wife. A comparison I found to the uncanniness created by Von Trier is in Night Cafe by Van Gogh. According to Charles Blanc's color theory that states when complementary colors are juxtaposed, they reinforce each other. Van Gogh describes that the red and green in Night Cafe express terrible human passions, where the picture becomes a battle and antithesis of reds and greens. Many of Von Trier's films use grotesque and shocking images involving sex, death, mutilation, and torture. Von Trier's fearlessness to make his viewers so deeply troubled and uncomfortable are what create the uncanny sense. Freud describes this quality of emotion. The subject of the uncanny is a province of this kind. It is undoubtedly related to what is frightening, to what arouses dread and horror. And I will say that once both courses lead to the same results. The uncanny is that class of the frightening which leads back to what is known of old and long familiar. The uncanny is an experience that defines the entirety of this film. It starts and ends by making the viewer uncomfortable. Feelings of repression and emotional impulses are constantly being acted out by her and him. whether it be an irresponsible decision to engage in sex or physically injuring each other in order to tangibly feel the pain brought on by a mistake that will haunt them forever. Freud states, a characteristic of the uncanny is bringing inanimate objects to life. Von Trier does bring the nature of Eden to life. There is a particularly disturbing scene where she has just helped a baby bird come back to life. Seconds after her husband had encouraged her to feel good about it, the baby bird falls down out of the tree and ants begin to swarm the animal. In the blink of an eye, an older and bigger bird swoops down and begins to eat the bird. This is a disturbing scene for a multitude of reasons. Her emotional response to being able to help the baby contrasts so obviously her inability to save her own son when he fell to his own death. The older bird, eating the baby, comments on the thesis of the film, that women are controlled by nature and they are an inherently evil species. The subtleties involved in Lars von Trier's style of filmmaking explicitly reminds the viewer that the world around us has perpetual elements of evil, that death is unescapable and sometimes unfair. However, grieving must be something that is accepted and felt. By being so outward in his portrayals to the grotesque, von Trier encourages us to feel uncomfortable. I would argue that von Trier did not create this film to be understood. I believe he created this film to ask questions. He asked questions about the nature of women, the nature of evil, and what it means to not accept grief, but rather violently and immorally try to cure it instead.